WWE CEO, at least for now, Nick Khan was on the Bill Simmons podcast this week. I am not a sports ball guy, so I don't regularly listen to Bill Simmons, but I do know that he is a very big wrestling fan and a smart wrestling fan, too, by listening to this podcast. He definitely gets it. This was a fantastic podcast to listen to. This kind of stuff that gets my dick hard, to be honest with you. I love the business side of professional wrestling. I love the insider stuff. Not just wrestling, you know. I follow the Hollywood insiders as well. And anything that's kind of inside baseball, behind the scenes, I love that kind of shit. I eat it up. So this was an absolute treat to sit and listen to Nick Khan for a good hour. Well, no, it was a little less than an hour, maybe about a half hour, 40 minutes or so, talking about all things WWE. And I mean, he got into everything. And Bill was a good interviewer. He did not hold back. He asked probing questions. And Nick Khan did this thing where, and we're going to play some clips here, but Nick Khan did this thing where he kind of danced around questions corporately, politically, you know, as any good politician would, or any good, I guess, businessman, CEO type would do. They kind of dance around the tough questions. And Bill was really good about kind of coming back to it and being like, you didn't answer my question, though. I asked you this. And kind of forcing Nick to give some answers on a lot of things. So this was a very good, very informative interview. I highly suggest you seek it out. And it's on the podcast feeds. I did look on YouTube. I don't believe there's anything on YouTube about it. But Nick talked about a wide variety of things. You know, he was all over the place. You know, it was hard picking out certain clips for this. I did grab a couple, actually, because I mean, this whole podcast is clippable, quotable, to be honest with you. But a few gems here. The first thing I wanted to play is Nick Khan addressing Vince McMahon's return. You know, Bill was kind of like saying, like, do we really want Vince back right now? What do you think about this move? And Nick Khan gave a very corporate answer, but a very interesting answer at the same time. Check out this clip.
Were you surprised that he's started to inch his way back?
No. That's Vince.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows him who thought with a tweet, because I think he tweeted, you know, hey, I'm 77 now, time for me to call it a day or something to that effect, you know, when he stepped down. Anyone who believed that was permanent doesn't know him.
So let's unwind this. Vince McMahon steps down a year ago. All of these revelations about different NDAs from years ago goes in the Wall Street Journal. He steps down and it seems like he's gone. Then he goes on SmackDown, and just watching it from afar, the whole thing seemed insane. It was like, is this guy stepping down or not? Why is he on a show? Is he still around? People are wondering if it's a work. And now you have 10 months later, it really is starting to feel like the real life version of HBO's Succession, where Vince is now, he did what seemed to be from afar like a board coup d'etat. Stephanie stepped down. There were rumors you're going to sell to Saudi Arabia, which I never believed. But from we're watching this afar, this seems insane. What is it like to be in the middle of this? Does it seem less insane?
My thought has always been there's only one boss at WWE, and it ain't me. Vince is obviously the founder, creator of the company. He's also the controlling shareholder, which, as you know, that's not a work term.
Right.
That's a legal term of art. So I think it was always my point of view, always Stephanie's point of view. At some point, he would come back. I think the way that he played it, to me, was smart, Bill, in that he went away for 5-6 months, which people, meaning the audience, seems to like when somebody does that. And he came back and took control back of his company as a control shareholder. So it is the public's company, as a publicly traded company, but with that controlling share, gave him a lot of authority, and he used it, and I applaud him for doing so.
So Nick kind of paints a picture that Vince was probably always going to come back. That, he said it outright, basically. Anybody that knows Vince knows he wasn't going to stay away. Stay away? Are you fucking kidding me? And he kind of praised Vince, like, oh, that's just our Vince. And hey, when you're a creator, you got a vision. No real acknowledgement of the actual dirty deeds that kept him. As a matter of fact, Nick Khan was very dismissive of the dirty deeds that led to Vince stepping down. Basically dismissing them as just something that you have to get through, lay low for a couple of months, let the heat die down, then you can come on back. And he even said, oh, I think that's just a Hollywood thing, right? Oh, you have to step down because of scandal, just a cold businessman, very smart guy, Nick Khan, and soothing. He's got that sexy radio voice. He should be a fucking radio host, a talk radio. You're listening to the sweet sounds of Nick Khan on WFON. Or whatever. I don't know. Whatever call sign you want to give it. I don't expect him to say anything different, right? He's not going to go out there and bury Vince, especially because Vince can snap his fingers and have Nick Khan removed in a heartbeat. As the chairman of the board, you can appoint and fire the CEO of your company. So Nick's job is to run the company day to day. He runs everything inside the company. And Vince's job is to oversee him and the other board members and the daily activities of the board itself. So apparently this was the plan all along, right? Vince was going to come back when the heat died down and just kind of pick up where things left off. Though Nick is adamant that Vince is not back to take over creative or anything, at least not yet, right? We are already hearing rumors that Vince is back in the office and passing down notes, though we don't know that for sure. Then it was in this clip where Simmons asked Nick Khan about the sale of WWE. And of course, the Saudi rumors and that kind of thing that go along with it, he addressed. But just in general, the rumors of the sale, and are they looking to sell? Are they going to sell? What kind of deal are they going to be looking for? Are they looking for a media company, a private equity guy? Are they looking for somebody just to buy a chunk of WWE? What's going on exactly? Nick Khan lays it out. Check out this clip.
So the imminent announcement that it's been sold already or privatized, whatever it was. Of course, if you're looking at it, connecting the dots, it made absolutely no sense. In terms of what the actual process will be, we're just starting it now.
What's the sale process without telling me too much? All right, because I know you have some restrictions, but
Sure.
You have a bunch of suitors. You have a price in your head. Vince obviously wants to sell. I actually, sidebar question. Why does Vince want to sell? Is it an age thing? Is it like, what am I going to do? But the end, I'm looking at the finish line a little bit here. Why not? Maybe this will be my final victory lap. Why sell now out of all times?
I think he's ready. I can't describe it as anything more than that after the last 5 months. And keep in mind, again, you engaged in empire building. You're still engaged in empire building. At a certain point, it's like, okay, how much more of this empire am I going to build? We continue to build it. He continued to build it until he stepped down 5 months or so ago. But I think in looking at a world of consolidation, the sort of, standalone enterprise that owns 99% of its intellectual property.
Yeah.
With the media rights.
And a library and media rights.
A library, right? With the media rights coming up in October of 24, which means the process starts in a few months on that. Certainly to go lock in a bunch of long-term deals and then to sell or try to sell to everybody doesn't make sense. The timing was now. So even if you look at our annual shareholders.
So you're saying you want to sell the company and then you do the deals. The new person that comes in, that would be their first order of the business, would be to bang out the new 2024 media right deals.
That's the goal, unless one of the media conglomerates ends up buying it directly. Right. Then they certainly wouldn't want it encumbered by long-term media rights deals elsewhere.
So for people listening, you have the streamers, all the usual suspects. You have a place like Endeavor, which has already bought UFC and figured out how to mine that IP in all this different ways. What are there any other lanes for suitors other than streamer or somebody like Endeavor? Is there somebody I'm missing? Could somebody with deep pockets just come in and be like, I want to buy this. Like how the guy bought the Phoenix Suns.
Yes. The other, avenue, again, on an unencumbered process, it's everyone you just mentioned, plus private equity. So there's a lot of money out there. There probably aren't a lot of transactions in 2023.
Yeah.
So I think this one is going to get, in a positive way, a heightened look by everybody to say, hey, what could we build this to? And if there's folks out there who regret not being able to buy the Suns or not buying the UFC 6, 7, 8 years ago, this is an opportunity that doesn't come around that often.
Yeah, there's no bones about it. I've seen people, I think pretty much everybody's come around to it now, but I think a lot of people were even kind of as early as last week were saying that, because I addressed it in my podcast last week. I was seeing a lot of people in the Facebook chats and on Twitter and all that, the people, the wrestling fans saying, WWE's not going to sell. They're always for sale. No. They're for sale. They are officially for sale. And the idea is to get this deal done before they have to renew any TV rights deals, because of the fact that it might be a TV company that buys WWE. And not only that, but, maybe there's the possible chance that the TV deal won't go as good as WWE hopes it might. And that, if they get lesser money or they don't get a raise, that could lower the value of the company too. I don't think that's the case, though. I think the landscape of television, regardless of the ratings that WWE is drawing, I think, there's a thirst for live entertainment, live sports like content, must-see content on TV. So they'll get a good deal. But you don't want to sell a company to, say, NBC Universal, right? Comcast doesn't want to pick it up and then have a TV deal negotiated with Fox, for example, where, we got a separate company in NBC Universal that owns all their own TV networks that now has to have a fucking, 3-year contract with Fox for no reason when they could just put it on their own networks. So that's the game plan. What surprised me about this is that they're open to partial buyouts, so where maybe Vince can still retain the portion that he owns, and then somebody else could come in and buy the rest, and they could take it private. All of these things are on the table at this point. And he did say that they were open to private equity deals as well. So they're not just looking for big corporations like Disney or Warner or Universal or Apple or any of these fucking cunts to come in and buy the company. They're open to just some rich ass dude with deep pockets to come in and throw his fucking dick on the table and buy the shit himself or themselves or a group of people. They're open to it all. Which leads me to my third clip here, as we've discussed last week, and the wrestling world was kind of buzzing about it for a little bit, is that Tony Khan and Nick Khan have thrown their names in the hats as particularly interested in a possible buy of WWE as well. And though this has kind of been dismissed out of hand by, the wrestling world, if they can put together enough private equity, if they can put together a deal between themselves and a couple other rich motherfuckers that want to invest in WWE, WWE's going to sell to them. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Nick Khan or Shad Khan, too many cons. All these cons. Shad Khan owns the fucking Jacksonville Jaguars and the Fulham football team over in Europe, and they're going to sell to him. They're not going to look at a guy that owns the Jaguars and say that he's not worthy enough to own another fucking. Of course they'll sell to him if he's able to put that money together. So, but that doesn't mean that they're going to respect AEW coming in and buying WWE, or at least Tony Khan. Nick Khan had many great things to say about Shad, but the kid, not so much. Check out this clip.
So one recurring theme with Vince's career was that he kept having a challenger, or there kept being these moments where it seemed like things might fall apart and then they didn't. And in the last couple of years, you had AEW. They come in as probably the most polished challenger you guys have had in 20 years. You know, they had deep pockets, the TV station attached to them, and somebody in Tony Khan running their business who was a real wrestling fan, who really dipped into the history of wrestling in a bunch of different ways with some of the angles, and realized that he had to be a little bit of a different competitor to you versus like what some other people have done, which is either get older wrestlers and try to compete with you that way, or basically just do what WCW did, which was just, we're going to do the same thing as you. We're just going to try to spend more money to do it better. They kind of countered it a little bit. They grabbed some ECW pieces and some indie wrestling things and some All Japan, all this stuff. And it seemed like a real competitor. It seemed like they had, at least in the wrestling community of the nerds and the people who love the 5-star matches, all that stuff, they kind of tapped into that. At what point did you feel like they were a threat?
Well, how do you think they're doing now?
Not as well.
Right. I think a couple things. I've never met the guy.
Although I think they're having a better 2023 than 22. But anyway, go ahead.
I think I've never met the kid. Tony Khan seems like a nice kid to me. I don't know him. I have met his dad, who randomly I sat next to at some like sports business luncheon that Stephanie and I went to a year and a half or so ago. I thought the dad was as impressive as could be. I think there was a piece on him in the New York Times a year or so prior to that. Self-made billionaire, I believe Pakistani immigrant. Could not be more impressed with him. I like the pivots. I'm not as big of an NFL fan as you are. I don't follow it the way you do. But I like the pivots he made. Make a mistake in hiring a certain coach a couple years ago, get out of that mistake, figure it out again. So could not be more impressed with the dad. He made his money in the auto parts business, I believe. So he knows that inside out. I don't believe he's involved on the wrestling side of the business. I'm talking about storylines outside of financing it.
No, he's got just the pockets.
Yeah, he has the pockets, and that's awesome. And I'm sure his kid appreciates it, but I was never threatened by that.
The kid seems like a nice kid. I don't know him very well. He seems like a nice kid. The kid. Complete disrespect by Nick Khan. You would expect nothing else, though, right? Like, I mean, he had very kind words for Shad, so I think the respect is there for Shad, but, you know, nobody takes Tony Khan seriously. Everybody looks at him as a rich kid's son playing with daddy's money, and it's all a big fucking joke to everybody. And, you know, at the end of the day, when you break down the bare bones, that is what Tony Khan is. He's a rich kid's son playing with daddy's money, playing his little fig fed together, you know, his real life fig fed. But, you know, he's doing quite well with it. He's got a TV deal, which is something that nobody in professional wrestling has ever been able to accomplish before. Sure, the smaller companies like Impact could get on, Anthem or fucking, you know, I guess they had Spike at one point, which was a decent TV deal. So it happens, but nowhere on the level of a TBS, TNT, the primetime spotlight. You know, this is a big accomplishment that Tony Khan was able to do. I mean, look, AEW's been around for 4 years now, and they haven't flopped yet, and they're showing no signs of going away. They've hit a couple rough patches now. The COVID hit them really hard, and then obviously the CM Punk situation really hit them hard. And, you know, Triple H taking over creative and Vince stepping down, that hit AEW hard as well. So they've weathered a few storms at this point, and they've still come out ahead of, you know, they're still hanging. They're still out there. They're still number 2, a close number 2. So I think people dismissing Tony Khan, I think it's a part of that's just ego. I think people just look down on Tony, especially wrestling fans. I think they're all just fucking morons, and they don't know what they're talking about. You know, they listen to a Jim Cornette podcast, and they go, "Oh yeah, Tony Khan's fucking, you know, he's a mark, a rich kid's son." You know what I mean? I think anybody can clearly see that he is running a good business there. He's certainly not running, regardless of whether you like the content or not. You can't look at the business of AEW. And of course, they're private, so we don't know their numbers. But Tony had said at the very least that AEW would have been profitable had it not been a large investment into the video game, which will make them a shit ton of money if it's any good. So, I don't think Tony's running a bad business here. And, he's doing quite well with the Jaguars right now as well. So it's like, I don't know. I think you're dismissing him. And I think we're in the internet area, so everything's louder and amplified. But I think this is very reminiscent, at least to me, of when a young Vinnie Mac took over for his daddy's company. Now, of course, he bought it out. He did buy it. He put his own money up, and off the success of WrestleMania, he was able to buy out the various partners that owned the WWF or Capital Wrestling. But it was young Vinny, little Vinny Jr., stepping in and taking over Daddy's company that he had already set up. Vince didn't start it from scratch. Now he turned it into the global phenomenon that it is. But that also happened over time, right? A lot of the wrestlers, the old-time wrestlers, didn't respect Vince. They called him Little Vinny. Hey, Little Vinny. And, they didn't have any respect for Vince. He was the boss. He was Vince McMahon. He was Vince McMahon Sr.'s kid. He was just, all the old-timers that were around in the 70s and the very early 80s saw Vince as just Vince's kid. Little Vinny. You know what I mean? No respect for the guy. Vince hates being called Junior. He hates being called Vinny, which were things that all of the guys called him. And Vince had to wait a generation essentially to kind of weed all that out of the industry and to start to be taken seriously. And really, it wasn't until he got into the 90s, late 80s and 90s, that people started to look at Vince as the man. And now, into the 2000s and 2010s and the 20s, where Vince has been able to kind of hone his image as the boss and all of that. But all of that to say, I think a lot of people have forgotten that, Vinny Jr. was a young man who had to earn a lot of people's respect when he first stepped into the wrestling business, taking over his rich daddy's business. So I think, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30, 40, if Tony Khan's still around running AEW, I think the respect will be there. He's a young kid, the same age as the wrestlers, and he's competing against the machine right now. So it's going to get him a lot of flack and a lot of hate, but I think people are sleeping on him. And Nick Khan, very dismissive. Just kind of wrap this up and bring it back to Nick Khan. Very dismissive. But, he went on to say, nobody's really competition. He doesn't sweat anybody, really. And not that they should be sweating AEW either, but just the dismissive tone of it was kind of rude, I suppose. But I would expect nothing less. Nick Khan seems like exactly what we've all heard. He's a smooth talker. He's got that silky fucking radio voice. He's got a very politically correct answers. He's good at tiptoeing around questions or wording them in a way that is favorable to him and the company. He speaks very much like an executive, and he sounds like he fits right in with the WWE structure, fits right in with what Vince would like. And there's no doubts at this point that Nick seems firmly in the lap of Vince McMahon, even though he was amongst the board members that unanimously voted to keep Vince out. And trust me, Vince will never forget that. He might have Nick around now, but he has not forgotten that Nick might have been a player acting against him behind the scenes. So for now, Nick Khan is the CEO of WWE, and he is running the day-to-day. And I highly recommend checking out this interview. There's nothing I could say that's going to do it justice. The whole thing, there's just gems all throughout it, and it gives you a really good insight into the man Nick Khan, as not his personal life or anything, but just as he sees the business and kind of his whole perspective on how he sees WWE and where WWE is going from here. And it looks like a sale is very imminent, and he made no bones about that. So this is going to be a very interesting year, and I'm here for it. I'm excited to see how all this develops. But what are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comments below if you've heard Nick, if you've heard that interview, or just based off of the clips that I've presented you here. Leave your thoughts on all of those, and I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next.
Oh yeah, thanks for checking out the video. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like it if you liked it. Yeah, and you can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on the channel. Oh yeah, dig it.